You know, deep within libertarian circles, there's this huge debate, almost a philosophical civil war, that's been raging for decades. And it all boils down to one single fundamental question. What, if anything, is the proper role of government?
So let's kick things off with a pretty wild idea. Imagine for a second you're not happy with your local police department. What if you could just switch? Pull out your phone, cancel your Police Flix subscription, and sign up with a competitor down the street. Could law and order really be a service you shop for, just like you shop for pizza? Well, believe it or not, this question is at the very heart of what we're going to unpack today.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Both sides in this big debate actually start from the exact same place. They both agree that individual liberty is the most important political value there is. But from that shared starting point, they end up in two completely different, almost opposite places when it comes to the role of the state.
Okay, so in one corner you've got the anarchists, or anarcho-libertarians to be more precise. They argue that if you really truly take individual rights seriously, the only logical conclusion is a society with absolutely zero government, where law itself becomes a competitive product. And then, in the other corner, you have the monarchists. They say, hold on a minute, to really protect liberty, a tiny, very limited government isn't just a nice idea, it's an absolute necessity.
So, you might be wondering, how on earth do you get from "I believe in individual rights" all the way to "let's have zero government"? I mean, it seems like a massive leap, right? But for the anarchists, there's a clear step-by-step logic to it.
The anarchist case kind of builds like this. It all starts with one core idea. You are a sovereign person. You own yourself. From there, it follows that protecting your rights, well, that's a service. And just like any other service, plumbing, groceries, you name it, no single company should have a legal monopoly on providing it. And the logical conclusion of all that? You should have competing police forces and competing court systems, all operating in the same neighborhood.
And that, right there, that's the anarchist vision in a nutshell. If your rights protection agency is slow or corrupt or just does a bad job, you fire them, you hire someone else. The theory is that this constant competition would create better, cheaper, and more efficient legal services for everybody. It's the pizza delivery model, but for justice itself.
Right, but as you can probably guess, not everyone's on board with shopping for justice like it's a Domino's 2-for-1 deal. The minarchists look at this vision, and they see some really serious, potentially terrifying problems.
This quote from the philosopher Robert Nozick. It absolutely nails the core fear that minarchists have. Think about it. In a world with competing private police forces, when one of them goes after somebody, it doesn't just affect those two people. It creates this ripple of fear through the whole community. Everyone starts thinking, well, who's to say they won't come after me next, whether I'm guilty or not?
So the minarchists come back with some really practical objections. I mean, what happens when two different courts give conflicting rulings? Who gets the final say? What stops a criminal from getting convicted by Honest Abe's courthouse and then just switching his subscription to Lenient Larry's legal services? For them, law isn't just another product. It's the fundamental operating system, the very foundation that makes every other business and every other contract possible in the first place.
So at this point, it feels like we're at a total impasse, right? An unbridgeable gap between these two sides. But the author of our source material proposes a really brilliant way out. He suggests that maybe both sides are stuck because they're misunderstanding one single crucial word.
And that word is monopoly. I mean, for most libertarians, monopoly is basically a 4-letter word. It's the ultimate evil. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the real question isn't if there's a monopoly, but what kind of monopoly we're talking about?
Okay, so let's define our terms. First up, this is the one everyone agrees is bad. A coercive monopoly. This is when a company isn't the only one in town because it's the best. It's the only one in town because it's literally illegal for anyone else to compete. The government has put up a legal wall to keep everyone else out.
This chart here really lays it all out for us. On the one hand, you have a coercive monopoly, like the U.S. Postal Service's legal monopoly on first-class mail. It's maintained by force. But now, think about an airline. When you're on a flight from LA to New York, that airline has a monopoly over you for those few hours. It's a de facto monopoly. But, and this is the key, it's not coercive. You chose to be on that plane, and for your next trip, you are totally free to choose a different airline.
Okay, so once we have this new tool in our toolkit, this idea of two different kinds of monopolies, a really elegant solution starts to take shape, a potential middle ground that could, amazingly, give both the anarchists and the minarchists what they really want.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the new idea. The anarchists want the pizza model, right? Lots of competition happening within the same territory. This new synthesis argues we should be thinking about the airline model instead. Competition between different territories. You have one stable provider of law in any given area, but there's a wide open market of different areas you can choose from.
So how would this actually work? Well, it breaks down into 3 pretty simple steps. First, you get the stability that the monarchists crave. One single, non-overlapping legal system in a specific area. No chaos. Second, you get the competition the anarchists demand, because people are totally free to change providers just by moving to a different place with a different government. And third, this right to exit, this freedom to pack up and leave, is what turns the government's monopoly from a coercive one into a benign one. It only exists because people consent, by choosing to stay.
And what's so clever about this is that it gives both sides what they really truly care about the most. The minarchists get their stable, predictable legal system, and the anarchists get real, meaningful competition that keeps governments honest and accountable. Which brings us to a really powerful final insight. At the end of the day, law just isn't like selling pizza. It's something much more fundamental. It's the stable, predictable framework, the rules of the game that has to exist before you can even think about starting a business, signing a contract, or yes, ordering that pizza.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on, something that brings this whole abstract debate right back down to earth. If a government's authority is only legitimate as long as you're free to leave, then what exactly is citizenship? Is it something you're born into and stuck with, or is it more like a long-term contract? One you implicitly renew every single day you decide not to pack your bags? Something to think about.